on this computer. All right. So it is 11 on the dot for me. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and people can trickle in as they do. But it's great to have you guys back for Bootcamp Day 2. So yesterday, what we focused a lot on was identifying the kind of life you want first. And sometimes I know it's a step that, to be honest, I think it's actually the hardest step. It's because it's a question that no one else can answer for you except for yourself, right? Like you can have like a life coach or, a mentor or coach that helps you, guides you in that discovery process. But at the end of the day, you're the only one who can say, yeah, this is the kind of life I want to live. And this is the kind of business I need to build in order to have that kind of life, right? So there's no like formula, so to speak. You can't just copy someone else in that case, right? So you really do have to determine that for yourself. In the full coaching program that I was telling you about, I do have worksheets. It comes with I think it's like, I forget how many now, but there's several spreadsheets and documents. There's a folder, a Google Doc folder that I share with you guys. And there's a ton of worksheets in there that helps guide you through that process of building that business. Essentially, you'll walk out with a business plan at the end of it. You will be able to identify the kind of business, the kind of life you want. So it's kind of like in a way, I see it as like 3 steps. The first step is designing your ideal life backwards. So starting with what you want first, what kind of life will make you happy, because that's the only way you're going to stay in business for the long run when it's actually fulfilling you. Then once you know what you want for yourself personally, then now it's figuring out how much are you worth and how much do you need to charge to maintain this kind of life, right? And what kind of business do you need to build in order to have that life? And then the third step, I like to call it who has your money. I think it's kind of a catchy way, but it's essentially marketing, right? It's finding those ideal clients. I feel like finding your ideal client is kind of cliche. And so it's in a way, it's like, who has your money? Let's go out there and identify these people who are ready to spend money with you. So if you haven't submitted an application yet, that QR code will get you to the application. And in the 10-week program, we go into much further depth, but I'm giving you like a really truncated version. And it's essentially only, I think, summary of like 2 chapters out of the whole 7 chapters of this full course. So, but I'm giving you as much as I can squeeze into in 2 days. So yesterday was step 1, determining the life that you want. And again, don't worry about the how you're going to get it. Just dream big first, right? Dream big. And yesterday's homework was writing down a list of your values, the kind of life you want to live, and what will keep you fulfilled in the long run, what will make you happy. Today, we're going to focus on step 2 and 3. So once you know, the formatting is all weird, but okay. Once you know what you need to be happy, the next step is to determine what you need to make. So it's the financial part of it now. And oftentimes, like, I think the hardest part for creatives, and tell me if you guys resonate with this, is I find that creatives tend to not be good business people. Creatives tend to love doing what's fun, what's new, coming up with the creative process, and not focusing on making money. And that's how the cliche of starving artist came about, right? It didn't come from nowhere. So I'm going to give you tools so that you can run the business without having to think about the business so much and have it set in place so that you can focus on being the creative that you are. Now, on the other hand, I also find that there are many successful photographers who love the business side of it and are not that great photographers. And I'm sure you know some of those as well. They're killing it in the market right now, but their work is just so-so, right? And that's okay too. Like I was telling you, for example, high volume, there's a need for every type of photographer out there. And so you can succeed with any model that you want. I am naturally a creative. So I used to hate on companies like JCPenney portraits, right? Because I'm a creative, I'm like, oh my God, those are so boring. But now, like, as I'm more mature and more wiser, and I don't judge other people by my own standards anymore, I realize that there is something for everyone. Not everybody out there actually wants creative photography either. There are many clients out there who are just looking for straightforward portraits. There are also creative people like myself who love creative portraiture, but at times I just need a quick headshot, right? So there is a time and place for every photographer. So what I'm trying to say is stay encouraged regardless of where your happy place is, because there is someone for you out there. So don't worry about the who yet or the how. We're just going to figure out how much you need to make, how much your business needs to generate for you to stay happily in business and for the long run. So don't let your business determine the life you're able to live. Design the business to give you the life that you want. I find that a lot of entrepreneurs tend to be at the mercy of their business. They let their business, and any of you have been in business long enough, you've probably been here at one point or another, where the business determines how much free time you have. The business determines how much spending cash you have that month, right? If you're going to live a life like that, then it's not very different than working for the man, right? Like, so to speak. Like when I was a teacher, that was kind of the life I lived. Like my vacation time was determined by how the school schedule and how much time I got off, right? My income was capped at how many years of service that I've done. So the reason why we go into entrepreneurship is to have these flexibility. So if you're going to then be chained to the business, it's kind of defeating the purpose, right? So think backwards about it. Think about the life that you want and design your business to work for you and to give you what you want. So the first step, we're going to kind of go through this very quickly, but in the full course, in the full Like Nobody's Business course, I have like a full worksheet for you that helps you guide you through this process. But essentially, how much does your dream life cost, right? I don't know if you guys have ever taken the time to think about that, but think about where you ideally want to live, right? Don't let the business dictate where you want to live. You think about where you want to live and design the business in a way that allows you to live there. So how much does that dream life cost? How much does that dream house cost? How often are you taking vacations? What's your shopping habits like? I like clothes. I like spending a lot of money on fashion. So I needed my business to be able to sustain that because I just have fun with it, right? And not to say that I'm materialistic, but I think fashion is part of like my creative expression. So I need to factor that in, like being realistic, right? Like when I sat down with a financial planner to work out my retirement plan, we needed to factor all that in. Like, how much do I really think I'm going to be shopping? If I want to be happy, I need to factor that in. And that's what you need to do for your business too. What about entertainment? Like, how often are you dining out? Is it going to be Michelin star restaurants? Like, how often? You need to factor those in, right? Once you figure out what your dream life is going to cost you, then you go backwards and determine what you need to charge. So to give you an example, when I quit teaching, what I told myself was I will allow myself to quit teaching because I am a risk taker, but I'm a calculated risk taker. I admire people who are willing to just like cold turkey dive into whatever they're doing, right? Like I've met people who are like, I quit my job. Like, oh, for what? Like to find out what I want to do next. I'm like, oh, without a plan. Like, wow. Like, I think coming from immigrant parents, I was not raised to be that ballsy. So I have to be a little bit more calculated with the risk that I take. Not that I'm not willing to take risk, but I have to, prepare for the risk, right? And in the full course, I actually do talk about how to take risk and how to, if you're risk adverse, like how to minimize the risk. So, oh my gosh, my slides look all funky. I think it's the font. but okay, well, I will deal with that later. But so, point is, so when I quit teaching, what I had to do was like, how can I not be so scared? When I decided to quit teaching, there were several things that scared me. One was health insurance. I just never had to pay for my own health insurance before. I basically went straight from my dad's coverage into my teaching job. So I never had to pay my own health insurance. And I remember talking to other entrepreneurs and I was like, but when I was thinking about quitting, I'm like, but what about health insurance? Like, what do you do about that? And they looked at, I remember specifically, we were at a bar and it was a guy and he looks at me really confused and he's like, you pay it yourself. Like, what's the big deal? You're going to be making more money anyway. So you factor that into the cost of doing business. And, and I realized after like, oh, it's the same thing as a mortgage. It's the same thing as when I bought my first house. Like, oh my God, like, how do I start paying a mortgage, right? So you factor, that's where I was saying about how much your dream life costs. Factor all that in too. Health insurance, car insurance, the type of car you want to drive, all of that, right? So then once you have that figured out, you figure out how much you need to charge. So for me, when I was quitting teaching, I said, if photography can match my teaching salary, then I'll quit. Then I will comfortably and securely quit. And my rationale was, well, I'm working 2 full-time jobs right now. And if photography is already matching teaching, if I drop teaching, I'm only going to get an additional 8+ hours a day back in my life, right? So what I can do with that to either grow the business or my own personal time. So I'm only going to make more after that point. And I was right. So so I calculated backwards, like, all right, at the time, my teaching salary, I think was like $75,000. So if I'm doing $75,000 and I need photography to be able to make that much, how many sessions can I realistically take a year? How many weddings can I realistically take a year? And at that time, I was focusing mostly on weddings, not so much portraits. But so I did the math backwards. Like, let's say I do 20 weddings a year, right? Then how much do I need to be charging? All right, 20 weddings a year. If I'm charging $4,000 per wedding, right? That's already more than what my teaching salary is. So that became my goal. All right, I'm going to get to the point where I'm charging $4,000 per wedding. And then eventually it's like, okay, what if I increase it to 5,000, right? Then 7,000, then 10,000 and so forth. So in the full course, I also go over, there's a strategy on how to raise prices. So I do understand it's not as simple as like, all right, I'm going to go from charging, $2,000 per wedding to $5,000. Like it doesn't happen like just like that. There's a lot of things in place that you have to do before that happens. And so in the full course, I will go over that with you guys, but to give you guys just a nutshell of what needs to happen. So now, how much do you need to shoot to meet your financial lifestyle goals? So that's what I was just saying that I did. So once you know that, it becomes less scary. The other thing that was really liberating about this process was I realized that, I only need 20 weddings. Like at the time I was charging like $3,500 for a wedding when I quit my teaching job. And I thought, I only need 20 weddings. That means I only need to please 20 couples. I don't have to please the whole world, right? So that's what I mean by like earlier when I said, who has your money? It's identifying. I'm going to identify those 20 people now. Who are those 20 couples I need to find, right? And it makes it a lot more approachable and less scary. All right, so true or false, you should lower your prices if prospective clients keep saying you're too expensive. So thumbs up if you think it's true, thumbs down if you think it's false. Awesome. Okay. I know in theory, we usually know that that is false, but I also understand that sometimes in the moment, it gets to you and it gets to your head, right? It gets to your confidence. So, but you guys are absolutely right. That is false. If people are saying you are too expensive, it is not because you are actually too expensive. So do not lower your price. If people are saying you are too expensive, what they're actually saying is that you haven't communicated your value to them yet, right? The next time you are worried about this, like remember that what you need to do is actually raise your perceived value. And an example of perceived value is, for example, let's say, I'm just going to go off of like something recent that I can think of, but you can go to Target and buy a purse, and the purse will maybe cost you $30. But you walk into like Louis Vuitton, and now you're paying like $3,000 for a purse. What makes that Louis Vuitton purse worth that much more? Sure, like you can, the craftsmanship, the material, it is better, but it's not better by that much more, right? It's better, like, and if you figure like the labor and the material, the hard labor material cost, you're still looking at probably a couple $100s. Like there's people on TikTok that have broken that down. It's like a couple $100s. The remainder is that perceived value that they have created for you, right? So that's what I mean by when you start to raise your prices. So one of the biggest strategies that we go over in the full course is that as you start raising your prices, you also have to raise your perceived value. When I was raising my prices, for example, I got to a point where I was meeting people at Starbucks, and I was booking weddings at like $2,500, $3,500, $4,000, and it was fine, right? We would meet at Starbucks. They like me, they book me. I bring my I carry all my sample albums with me, and it was fine. Eventually, those bookings slowed down. I raised my price to 5,000. And I think at 5,000 was when the booking really started to slow down. And rather than saying, oh no, I need to lower my price, it was, wait a minute, how do I raise my value? So then I had to reevaluate, do the weddings, whenever somebody says I'm too expensive, I don't say, or have you ever had an inquiry before where they reach out to you and they say like, oh, my budget's like $50 or $100, right? So I used to would get offended by that. But instead of getting offended by that now, I ask myself, what did I do to give them the impression that I was worth only $50 or $100? Where did they get that impression from? So then it's important to know where your leads are coming from. So for example, if they came in through Yelp, then I'd be like, okay, well, I'm not trying to attract my ideal clients through Yelp, so no big deal, right? I didn't even put myself on Yelp, a client did, so that's fine. But if they came through my website and they are thinking that I am $50, something is wrong with my website there. So that's what I mean by raising your perceived value, right? It comes from every little point of contact that they make from you, whether it's your Instagram feed, your website, even how you respond back, how long it took for you to respond back, what you're writing, the tone of voice that you use when you write back to them, right? Is it casual? Is it formal? The copy on your website, is it formal or is it casual? Like all of that gives a different type of feel. So as you raise your prices, you're going to have to raise your perceived value as well. There was one year where I realized like, wow, to finish the Starbucks story, I thought, I think after 5,000, and again, remember, this was like over 10 years ago. So the numbers are different nowadays. But at that time, I thought 5,000 was a lot of money to ask for someone in a Starbucks. So I got an office. I did a shared office with a couple friends, and all of a sudden bookings increased again. Because now when they're coming to my office, they feel like I'm established. I'm not going to run off with their money or not be in business in 3 months, right? Like, so little things like that. And eventually raising my prices again, when I hit 7,000, I realized like my website's really out of date. My website looks kind of amateur at this point. Like I need to level up and invest in a better website. So those are some ideas that I'm giving you right now of how you can raise your perceived value. And again, in the full course, we do go over a full plan. But yeah, Hannah, I see a question.
Yeah, Carolyn, I was wondering, like you've been in the industry for a long time. So if you were to look at another photographer's work, like would you have like an idea of how much that photographer should be charging? Or would you say that's kind of arbitrary.
I mean, it is arbitrary, but I can tell too. Like I can tell what the perceived value would be. I don't know what they actually charge because anybody could put whatever price they want on it, right? But I could look and say like, yeah, this is, the other thing that I have a pet peeve with, particularly for wedding photographers, is styled wedding shoots. I find that they're very disingenuous, and what people create hardly ever represent what they actually shoot. So what happens is you give your clients false expectations. The other things that I see often when I do portfolio reviews is there's a total clash between what they paid for and what they're really shooting. And I could just spot it out when I look at it. And oftentimes with these styled shoots, like they're so unrealistic. Like the people look like models. And I'm not saying like real couples can't look like models, but you usually can tell, like, like when you look at it, like it lacks the emotion. Everything's like just too perfect and styled. And what I always tell people, and I'm not saying don't do it. I think there's a lot to learn at styled shoot, but what I'm against is people putting it in their portfolio and trying to sell that to audience, because did you pose that couple that way? If a couple books you expecting you to recreate that, will you be able to recreate that for them, right? And if you can't, then you are putting yourself at risk for complaints and disappointment, people wanting their money back after, right? Like we don't want unhappy clients. That's going to make us hate our jobs, right? So the best way to ensure a great client experience is to set realistic expectations for people. And so that's okay if the styled shoot is what you're aspiring to and you're not quite there yet. Go do it, go practice with it. But now with your actual couples, take what you learned from there and try to apply it in that situation and make it your own, right? Like a lot of times at these workshops, like people are shooting over my shoulder, and on photo walks, I always encourage people to like, I'm gonna generally give you the idea and tell you why this is the best lighting and the best angle to do it. I will show you how I pose the people, but you really need to get in there too and direct them yourself. Because if you're just shooting over my shoulder, you're just getting like a carbon copy of what I'm creating, and you won't be able to do this for yourself later, right? So just make sure that you are setting realistic expectations for people. And the other thing that I did to really raise my value, so for those of you who don't know, like my backstory, I'm completely self-taught. While I was a teacher, I learned photography on the side for fun. I was photographing my students during class. I borrowed the school's camera. I was using our school's camera as like, I volunteered to be the school historian, and I was just taking pictures. But that was, at that time, I was just practicing how to shoot manual. That was my main goal, right? Let me see how quick I can adjust the settings. Eventually, I bought fancier lenses for the school body so that I could start, every shoot that I did, I was asking myself, how can I make this look more like that next level I want to be at, right? So I would start photographing my coworkers' kids. Okay, now how can maybe I need to dress them myself. Maybe I need to bring clothes for them and make them look like my ideal couples, right? When I was doing weddings, one of the weddings that was in my portfolios for a long time, and actually the person who referred that is in this room right now. Thanks, Chris. It was out in like the middle of nowhere. So where we stayed was like a Motel 6, like, or worse equivalent. Like there was just no hotels out there because it literally was in like the middle of nowhere. Now, how do I make, when I'm photographing like the detail shots of the dress hanging and stuff, how do you make this look glamorous, right? So I'm asking myself, and this was one of my first weddings. It was like, how do I make this look like that next level wedding I want? How do I style this dress? How do I style this photograph to look even more beautiful, right? So the goal is to make their memories even more beautiful than they remember it to be. It's authentic, it's still true, but it's like the most beautiful version. If you need to move stuff out of the way, do it. If you are in a crappy hotel room, move furniture if you need to. I'm known to rearrange the furniture in the room. That's the best light right there. I'm going to shoot there, right? And then that is going to take you one step closer to that perceived value that you are trying to get at. So that is your step 2, is slowly getting yourself to that point of where you can start charging the price you need to charge. Now, step 3, like I was saying, who has your money? In other words, identifying your ideal market, ideal audience, right? And strategies on how you can reach those people. I always like for you to create that avatar of your ideal audience. Once you have that ideal audience, and this is also an exercise that I walk you through during the full program, but once you have that avatar, that person that you are speaking to, it makes all of your marketing efforts way easier. Because now when anyone ever like hop on Instagram to put a post and you struggle with the caption, like you're not sure what to write, usually that happens because you don't know who you're talking to. So when you have an audience in mind, a person in mind, you know exactly what to say to them, right? So kind of a chicken and the egg situation here, but I want you to think about this. What comes first, the product or the marketing? So thumbs up if you think the product, thumbs down if you think the marketing. Okay. I see a lot of like hesitant. So there's not like necessarily a right or wrong way to do things. As you'll see, that's kind of my motto in life, that there's always more than one way to do things. However, this is how most people sell things. They create the product and then they find people to buy it. Does that sound familiar? Ooh, I want to start offering, I don't know, mini sessions. Okay, now who's going to buy it? Like who can I get to book these mini sessions now, right? Ooh, I'm going to start offering photography. I'm going to start offering branding photography. Okay, who's going to buy it? So, and I think products is a more obvious, like I'm going to start offering these albums. I'm going to start offering these frames, these prints. Okay, now who's going to buy it? Like who can I find to buy it? What I don't like about that is that you end up chasing instead of attracting. Now you're out there, it feels kind of desperate, right? It's like, I'm trying to find someone to, and that's usually what ends up making you feel really salesy. So if any of you anyone not like sales, most creative don't like sales. But if you don't like sales, it's because you're doing this. So what if you started with the marketing first? What if you thought about your marketing first? And what I mean by that, and this is your homework for tonight, is so your ideal clients, we kind of skip that part because we'll do that in the full course. But if you could think about who your ideal clients are real quickly, what kind of problems do they have? What are their concerns? What are their issues at hand right now? And what I like about this process is, so if you have pen and paper out, here's the next thing for you to draw. Or do you need more time to write? You can at least write that, and it's homework anyway. So think about what problems your clients have. But here is a way for you to think about it. So draw 3 circles that are connected like this, your classic Venn diagram. This is another sample assignment that we do in the full program, but we have like a ton of activities like this that guides you through the process. So the first step, I want you to think about what your clients need, what their problems are. What are the things that they need? What are their pressing concerns at this moment? So make a whole list. And again, you can fill this out as homework. But at least have that set up. Now, the next bubble, I want you to list everything that you're capable of doing. So for example, the client's need could be pretty pictures, Instagram photos, frames, wall art for their house, photos to send grandma, videos for their Instagram reels, editing their vacation photos, making albums out of their vacation photos. I'm just like really thinking out, like I'm trying to like not give you guys the very obvious answers, right? And a Christmas present, an anniversary gift, Mother's Day gift, like those kinds of problems, like those kinds of needs is what I want you to start thinking about. And what can you do? What can you do can be a range of anything, which is like editing photos, designing albums, creating wall art layouts, scheduling shoots, bookkeeping. I don't know. And I say that bookkeeping because the last circle I want you to do is things that you actually enjoy doing. What are your favorite parts? Styling shoots, sales. Some people really love sales. Some people really love the creative process of styling shoots. Some people are able to do hair and makeup, right? And whether it's something you can do versus something you enjoy doing, right? So once you have that list, I want you to find all the things that all three circles have in common. When you're able to find that sweet spot of something where your clients need it, you're able to do it, and you like doing it, now you've, designed your dream business, basically, right? Because now you will be happily doing something that you're well capable of doing and your clients actually need it. So that's why I say always start with what your clients' needs are, because just because you enjoy doing it, for example, like currently my hobby, I like dancing. No one needs my dancing. That's not going to get me anywhere, right? So that's like an example of just because you enjoy doing it doesn't mean it's good for business. So, and this is an activity I regularly visit as well annually, because sometimes this changes. Maybe this year I really enjoyed creating Instagram reels and next year I don't. Maybe I'm bored of it. And as a creative, that's actually very common for us to get tired of things. And so in the full course, what I also teach you is how to automate things and how to be able to hand it off to someone else to do, how to create systems for it. So for example, I love innovating things and I love creating new products. But once I've done it, I get kind of bored of it. And then I don't want to do it again. So at that point, it's how can I hand it off to someone else? Let me give you an example of some businesses that I've done that are on that path. For example, when my kids were little, I had this dream of creating them their own custom alphabet book. My idea was, I was buying these ABC books for the kids, and in there was like generic photos. And I'm like, what if it was photos of my kids instead? Like I was like, I think a parent would really love that. And so, A is for ants. And there's an apple that he threw there. B is for bike and basket. C is for cake, right? So and it would go all the way to Z. And so that was an idea that I had. And it was really fun creating it that first maybe 2 years, because the first year I was finally getting to create it for my kids. I also enjoyed launching it. But now I'm at a point where I want to be focusing on either the marketing of it or doing other things, but not the daily grind of it. So then it's how do I create foundational blocks and systems for this business so someone else can run? And the same method. So now I don't actually run this business. I'm essentially like the CEO of it. They just check in with me. We have our regular meetings. The marketing, if you go to our Instagram, like someone else is running all of that for me, right? And if you haven't seen it, a little, does it have audio? Let's see. ABC.
AB Seasons allows your child to be the star of their very own personalized alphabet book that highlights the growth of your child in 4 seasonal photo shoots over the span of 1 year.
Were you able to hear the audio? Yeah. Okay. So to give you guys an idea about, like, I mentioned before, like I run several businesses, right? Like my photography business is not my only business. Like this education stuff is its own thing. And then my like Magic Paper Studios, it's its own thing as well. And a lot of people will ask me, how do you do it all? And the simple answer is I don't do it all. I can't do it all, but I have systems in place that allows me to be able to manage it. And this is basically the foundation of what Like Nobody's Business course is. It's how I was able to, so to give you an idea of where this all stemmed from, back in the day, like several years ago, I had a business mentor. And during one of our meetings, I said, he kind of walked me through this exercise of like what your dream life is. And I said, you know, I would like my life to be like 50% education and 50% photography. He's like, okay, great. How are you spending your time right now? Like if you had to break down your percentage. And I was like 90% photography and 10% education. At that time, I was just doing like speaking engagements and that was it. Like I didn't do any of this Zoom class. I didn't have recorded classes or anything like that. But I dreamt of it. I wanted to do it. I was like, I want to start being able to teach more. And he's like, do you see the discrepancy there? If you're spending 90% of your energy on your photography business, how are you going to grow your education to be 50%, right? So I basically it took me about 18 months to create systems for my photography business so that I no longer needed to be in the daily grind of the business. Creating foundational blocks for it so that I can have other people help me run the actual business and I'm more overseeing the business. Once I was able to do that, then I had time. I suddenly had more time and I was able to create courses. I had time to record now. And that's how I think the first course I recorded was all about light, all about flash. Then I did fancy camera. And eventually I realized like, wow, you know, I'm so proud of myself. Like I'm able to like run both of these now. And then when Magic Paper Studios came along, I was like, I want to be able to do more of this. This is really fun. And then it was creating foundational blocks for that again, so that it can run, right? Because otherwise, if I'm just one person, I can't make it all run. So then that's how I was like, well, how can I teach this to other people so that they can also have businesses like this? And like I mentioned in my Instagram stories, like last year we had Magic Paper Studios fully running. My education courses, I was, you know, launching courses like quarterly, and we were doing mentoring classes, sessions quarterly. My photography business was all like, and these are like, you know, multi six-figure businesses each, right? So when I was reflecting back on my year, I'm like, I did a lot. Like, I'm feeling really proud of all that I accomplished. But at the same time, like, how did I have so much free time? Because I look back, like as a family, we picked up tennis and we were playing tennis every day as long as the weather allowed it. We were playing tennis every day. I was working out at least twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. I also started picking up dancing. And then I started learning Korean, like just for fun. So like you can see my Korean homework from this week. No, I need to unblur my, wait, how does that? No, that's not going to work. But anyway, we have daily homework. Like, so like every day I'm spending like an hour learning a new language right now. Right. And I think like, that's a lot of time. Like when I went to Imaging USA a couple weeks ago, another colleague, we were at a dinner like with a bunch of photographers, and some people were asking me like what my day-to-day schedule looks like. I'm like, I do Pilates at 9:30. I dance for like 2 hours, like because time can really get, if it's a new dance I'm learning, it can easily get sucked into 2-3 hours. I work out, I do strength training, and then I do an hour of Korean, and then I run my business like in between all that. And they're like, how do you have time to do all that? I'm like, how do I have time? So it was one of those realizations too, that like these systems really rock, you know, they make it so efficient. And I have built my team in a way where, I mean, I love my team, but the systems are also built in a way where turnover is okay too, because that's like a natural part of growth, right? Like if they move on, it's okay. Like the system, the blocks are still there and someone else can fill in those shoes as well. Like we had 2 turnovers in 2022. And while I'm really sad and I miss them, I was able to bring in other people to fill in those shoes as well. And we continued seamlessly, right? So those are, where I want to help you get your business to as well. The other takeaway I'll give you too is, as you are trying to grow your business, you have to remember that there's really only 3 ways to make more money. So there's like the last tidbit nugget I'll give you. You can either raise prices. So, going from charging $2,000 a wedding to $3,000 to $4,000, $5,000, $7,000, $10,000, $15,000, right, for a wedding. There is a, so to speak, glass ceiling to doing that if you don't change anything else. So that's like what I was saying, how there's a whole strategy to how to raise prices. You have to raise your perceived value as well. The second thing is you can get more clients. So you're going to keep your prices exactly the same, but just increase your volume. There's various ways you can do that. Eventually, if it's just you, there is a cap as well, right? Because you only have so many hours in a day. So you can either just max out whatever your capacity is, or you can potentially train other people on your team. So that's another strategy you can do, or you can sell more products. So same prices, same clients, but maybe adding more services for them. So maybe instead of just a session, now you're selling prints. Now you're selling video. Now you're selling styling, hair and makeup, right? Like all these additional add-ons that like make their package bigger. So instead of selling an average of, I don't know, $500 sitting fee sessions, maybe now you're better at marketing albums and getting them to also add an album in. So then now maybe you're doing like $2,500 session fees, right? Or not session fee, but like packages. So these are also some of the strategies that we will talk about in greater depth in the full course as well. So, but to give you a general idea, anytime you're in a place where you're thinking, I need to make more money, it's going to be one of these 3 strategies. Now, don't feel like you have to do all of them, because you shouldn't do all of them at once. It's going to be pick one. So maybe this quarter, I'm going to raise prices. Maybe next quarter, I'll work on getting more clients, so improving my marketing. And then maybe the week after or the quarter after, like, let me see what other products I can add to it. Before I start taking Q&As, can I do a quick selfie with all of you guys again? Can we turn on our videos? I have to remember that because, all right, turn on your videos. All right, I'm gonna make it a video too, so. Yeah! Oh, I love seeing all your smiley faces. Little hearts. Hearts. How many different hearts can you create? Yeah. Oh, I love seeing your smiley faces. So if you guys are willing to just keep your cameras on, we can do a Q&A session. How valuable was today's information so far? Awesome. All right. So John, I know you've had your hand up for a while, so let's take your question.
Hi, Carolyn. I'm working with Yuki Neo, and we've been doing fine, but it slows down periodically, like for everyone else. But how important is Instagram to our marketing?
Well, I missed the first part. You said you've been working with what?
I work with Yuki Neo.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just wondering, I have a very strong photography background, as does Yuki, who's now been an award-winning photographer. I come from a family of photographers. My father was one of the pioneers who invented color retouching and in-camera compositing. So I have a very strong background. But, you know, social media is kind of a new thing for me, and we use it a lot. But how important is Instagram for our marketing business?
In the short answer is it depends on who your market is. So remember how I was saying you have to determine first who has your money, right? Or in other words, who your ideal audience is. Once you've identified who your ideal audience is, it's then figuring out where do they hang out and where do you talk to them. So there is definitely a certain demographics that are on Instagram. There's a different demographic, slightly different demographics that you would find on Facebook. There's a different demographics you would find on TikTok. And it's really identifying what that group is that you're working with and where they hang out the most. Because, for example, like I was trying out any new platform, I'm game to just try for a little bit. So like Be Real, I was trying it for a little bit, but I was like, my audience is not here. Yeah, there's been so many different platforms that have come and go, right? For me personally, Instagram is a big part, but I will say what's an even bigger part of my marketing strategy is actually emails. It's way more important than Instagram is, but Instagram so the way I use it, and this may apply to you, Instagram finds me new clients and Instagram helps me keep in touch with a certain group of existing clients, but emails is actually the most direct way that I'm able to continue to communicate, because with Instagram, like not everyone sees your post, right? So, and I would say Instagram is only a part of your whole marketing scheme. You don't get to keep Instagram. If Instagram disappears, everything that you've created disappears with it. You don't get to keep it. You don't get to keep the followers either, right? So that's why I'm a strong believer in having an email list as well. So good question, John. Thanks. I'll go to Jen next. Oh, you're on mute.
How you doing? Nice to see you. Thanks for everything. So I have a question regarding number one, you actually touched on one of the things I was going to ask about, which is curating an email list. Second thing I wanted to ask is I work in New York. I've been in Westchester County, oh my gosh, studied journalism and photography, and I was a editor for a magazine for a while for an outlet. So I'm well known. All my business is referral business. I'm finding that now my referral base is widening. So I'm traveling an hour, 2 hours. I want a studio. If you didn't have a studio, would you be able to do what you're doing? I think I'm on this. I have to revamp everything about my business. It's like we've grown too big to be, this neighbor girl photographer.
It depends. For me personally, I need a home base. I need a studio.
Yeah.
What a studio has done for me is help minimize my travel. And I mentioned this yesterday too, but one of the best things I did to raise prices without raising prices was making my existing price only valid if you come to me. And I charge double if I have to come to you. So then that way, it was a really low risk way of raising prices, because if anybody is not okay with my new pricing, they still have the option of working with my old pricing. They just have to commute to me. Right. So if you're willing to make that drive to me, then it's the same price. But if I drive to you, it's double the price. So that's what I have. I found that I was able to shoot more once I had a studio. It was less stressful. I was able to schedule them back to back. It made scheduling more predictable. So if you go to my site now, like to book a session with me, the studio sessions are all automated. They fill in their name. They get to see all my available times. And like I mentioned, it's Thursdays and then half day Fridays if I'm around. And you get to see the available times. It's self-checkout. You pick the package you want, you pay, and then you're in my calendar. So no back and forth with them.
Yeah, I just did a shoot recently and it solidified that I don't want to continue traveling to people's houses and not having good lighting, or now I had a
Right.
woman take a backdrop out of an Amazon bag, literally while I was there. And you know, when you get that sinking feeling in the shoot, I haven't stopped thinking about it.
Yeah. So a couple ideas for anyone who's like thinking about starting a studio but nervous. Here are a couple like low risk ways of doing it. One, doing it out of your home if you have a spare room. The studio I shoot in my room is small. I think it's like 10 by 13 maybe.
Hmm.
So I actually have to shoot them from a different room because the room itself is so small.
Wow.
I shoot through the doorway of another room. So despite what you see, it's actually like not that big of a space, right?
Wow.
But it doesn't cost me anything extra because I'm already living here.
Mm.
I had a
Yeah.
studio, and I do miss having a studio, to be honest. I had a
Mhm.
studio, a beautiful studio in downtown LA that was like 2,000 square feet or something, and it was gorgeous. But
Wow.
pandemic happened. I moved, I shut it down because we were locked down. LA was locked down for a long time, so I
Wow.
shut that down. I think 2 months into the pandemic, and I don't regret it. I miss it, but I don't regret it. I don't miss the lease on it, but I am in the process of looking for another studio solution. So you can either do that. You can convert your garage if you'd like. And a lot of this is just trial, right? This is just seeing. To me, it's like your beta testing to see will people respond to it. And it's how you market it. Market it as a really cool, studio, consistent lighting, and see how many people book. And if you start getting, you'll get an idea of what the traction is. And then that might give you the confidence you need to sign a lease. The other option, on programs like PeerSpace, you can rent studios for an hour or a day. So what you could do is just start booking and pretending that, or if you have like a studio that you like, or maybe a few studios that kind of offer the same look, if you're using strobes and backdrops anyway, then I think even more so, it doesn't matter which studio it is. And start marketing that as your studio. And don't just say address is disclosed after you book. And that just means I'm not going to book it till you book me. And once you start getting people booking, then book the studio. Then perhaps you start trying to stack that one day. Try to get people to book more, or you do what I do, where studio shoots are available Thursdays only, and then hopefully that consolidates. Yeah, then you book the studio out for that one day when you need it. So hopefully that gives you enough ideas of how to get started with the studio without committing and breaking the bank. So
Thank you.
my pleasure. All right, let's go to Kevin.
Hi, Caroline. So quick question. So I see a lot of photographers, like mainly in YouTube, saying like you have to like pick a niche and like be an expert on a specific like type of photography in order to like be successful, like photographer's business. So like in your experience, like, do you think this is true? Because like based on my personality, I tend to get bored if I do like the same thing like over and over. So I wanted to know your opinion on this.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a question that always comes up amongst photographers. So if you guys haven't been able to tell already, I have a short attention span and I have a wide range of interest. I like innovating and creating, so I definitely don't have a niche. So like, if anything, I'm an example of how you can succeed not totally niching down. However, you will grow faster if you are focused, right? I know I lack focus because I like so many things. Like, I don't need to be learning Korean and dancing right now, but I just like it. So my advice to you would probably be to grow each niche one at a time. If you're going to do that, you will grow a lot faster. And if you look at my Instagram, I'm just starting a new company. It's not totally launched yet, but it's called Carol T, CARO, capital T. Well, it doesn't matter the capital, but Carol T Studio. I'm breaking my babies off into its own niche now. And it's because if you do niche, it is a lot easier to market and grow because you have one clear audience who you're speaking to. When you have too much, it gets confusing and people don't know who you're talking to because and a lot of times, like, people have said like brides don't want to see babies and moms are over the weddings. They don't want to see weddings anymore, right? For me, for a long time with my business, the way I ran it was that I was like, I followed people's circle of life was how I saw it. I was like your life photographer, right? Like I would follow you from your engagement to your wedding to your babies. So what worked really well for me in that case is that brides, I tend to attract brides who were very family oriented and who dreamt of having babies as well, because they did see the babies. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I love that, right? So it worked in my case because I was able to grow that circle and I was able to nurture them. The moment that they booked me for an engagement session, I was already planting the seed. When the baby comes, reach back out to me. So that worked really well. However, when I started doing branding photography and commercial photography, that didn't fit into my feed. The audience no longer cared for that. And even if you look recently, I posted a post just out of curiosity from one of my recent branding shoots, and it like had hardly any engagement. I was just curious just to see, right? So in that case, like if I really wanted to grow the branding stuff, I would probably have to, start a separate thing. The other thing that doesn't work well about what I did is that it's not as scalable, because what I was selling was the idea of me following you through your life. But if I want to start scaling and having other photographers shoot for me, like they don't want the other photographers, they wanted me, right? So that's why I started Carol T Studios, because Carol T Studios is now my baby studio where I'm marketing this type of photography, this studio portrait that you will get. And it doesn't matter who shoots it. Eventually, that's like the goal that I have for that business, that I'll be able to manage it more like a high volume studio with more photographers that I would train to shoot just like me, and people would come in for that. But anyone who wants the more creative stuff would then get it through the Caroline Tran brand. So the Caroline Tran brand gets to still play and explore as I have been. And then the Carol T brand is very consistent, babies on white backdrops, essentially, or neutral backdrops. So
I see.
hopefully that gives, I know it's not a straightforward answer. It's one of those where you really have to think about what you want in the end. So there's no right or wrong way. It's just which one is the right one for you.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, Olga.
Hello, hi everyone. So my question is very similar to what you just said, but I still want to hear the answer. So I'm doing everything. I like everything. I do portraits, I do a little bit of weddings, I do newborns a lot. And I have already 2 Instagram accounts, which is my own and my photography. So I'm thinking, should I separate and create new account for newborns and maternity and put it together? Or should I, because like you said, bride doesn't want to see baby right now. She wants to see a wedding. So like, does it make sense to create new account, and what to do for the website? Do I also have to create separate website for each niche, or for the website it can be all together?
What I would recommend is for you to think about what percentage you want. If you really want 50% weddings and 50% portraiture, then you probably need to break it into 2. Or maybe not. But the website for sure, I would probably segment the people right from the start. So right when they come to your homepage, it's like, are you here for babies and families, or are you here for weddings? And then you take them to, and then maybe keep that site more about you and the artist and, the process if it's similar. So for me, for many years, I kept them as just one brand because I felt like the experience was very similar and the style was very similar. And I didn't need to break it apart, and it worked just fine. But now that I'm really trying to grow the baby photography more, that's why I broke babies off into its own thing. I have a separate account for weddings that I created too, that is essentially just a wedding portfolio. Like I'm not trying to grow that as its own, but I wanted like for a bride to come, if she just wanted to see weddings, she could quickly click and see just weddings. So that's how I'm doing it. But I would say it depends on how on how similar the two looks.
No, they're very different.
If they're very different, then you probably will want two separate brands for it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
if they don't live cohesively together.
Not really. No, it will be very different because I have like portraits are very creative. Regular photo shoots, they just regular photo shoots. Newborns are newborns and poses and all that. And it's just like I'm all over the place. So
Yeah.
it's like probably better, I guess.
Yeah. Thanks,
All
Olga.
right. Thank you.
All right, Cal.
Hey, hi Caroline. Hey everyone. Happy to be here. My question is really simple. If we're not able to work with you on this upcoming course with like nobody's business, when is the next application opening / when will you be running the next, I guess, cohort?
So full transparency, this might be the last live coaching group that I'm going to host this year. I have other projects I want to launch. Like this year, I want to try to start up a YouTube channel. So like I said, I have a lot of projects, right? But I'm also fully aware that you can't, this is also an example for you of how you can't do everything all at once. So anytime you say yes to one thing, something else has got to give. So it's probably been like 2 years now that I've said, I want to start a YouTube channel. And it comes back to, okay, how much time are you spending on trying to start this channel? Like no time, right? So it's got to come from somewhere. So I might not be offering this group coaching program anymore, as I'm going to try to give myself 1 year to see if I can get traction on YouTube or not. That said, there are other options if you can't join the live coaching. One is there is an option to just buy the pre-recorded class and then you do it self-guided. So you won't be hopping on the live Zooms with me, but it's like 7 chapters worth of pre-recorded classes broken down into small, like 5-10 minute segments. So you'll be able to watch on your own at your own time. The other thing that you can always add on to is I do offer one-on-one consulting, and that's on my site too. So what people have done is they've done the self-guided course, and then when they run into like a wall, like a barrier, then they book a one-on-one with me. And then I help you unclog that. And then you go back and then you continue, right? Like, so during the one-on-one, we'll troubleshoot what your issues are. And then I'll give you solutions on what your next step should be. You go out, you execute it. And then, you might be on your way and happy. The next wall you hit, you're welcome to schedule another one-on-one. We hop on another call and, work through that. So yeah.
Cool. That's great to hear. And I'm looking forward to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, keep an eye out. I have some ideas though.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Cal. All right, Gabby, let's have you chime in next. You're muted right now.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So my name is Gabby. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm at the point where it's become too much, just like trying to manage everything. So I do know that I have to start like building a team and like getting assistants to do like admin stuff, social media possibly. And I just wanted to hear from you, like, what was that transition like for you? Because right now my struggle is, I guess, finding people that I can trust to kind of carry out the vision that I have.
Yeah.
Or finding the money to kind of pay help, but then also trying to maintain a price range for clients that is reasonable.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And we have a whole chapter dedicated to that in Like Nobody's Business, but I will try to give you a very short version of it. So the very first thing that I always tell people to do is make a list of all the tasks that you have to do in your work. And then you separate it into 2 different lists. One are lists that really needs to be done by you. And then everything that doesn't need to be done by you. So for example, writing Instagram captions, does that have to be done by you? And I'm trying to be like pretty granular about it. Writing a blog post, does that have to be done by you? Taking the photos, editing the photos, hopping on sales call, bookkeeping, right? Like all of those little things, cleaning your lens, even charging your batteries, right? Like these are all things that have to be done as part of our business. Which one of those, if it was not done by you, would just completely like break your business? You know what I mean? Like, so these are like essentially like your core competency is what we're trying to get at. Like, so when I first did this for myself, most of the things were like, I have to do it myself. And very little things were on the other list. And that's fine. I know especially if you're a control freak, it's very hard to start letting go of things, right? But start with that list and that's fine. But as you start, one mentality that I have in my business, and the reason why it's so streamlined the way it is now, is I never want to do the same thing twice. So if I ever find myself repeating an action, so if I am loading up a Lightroom catalog and like, oh my God, like the same monotonous task again, I am going to record what I do so I can teach someone else to do it. So that's kind of my mentality nowadays. I don't do anything twice. So anything that is rinse and repeat should not be repeated by me. So and that's how you start to build up the systems to pass it on to someone else. There's two ways that you can hire help. One is you hire an expert in that field. So for example, web design, you don't have to know how to design a website. You can hire an expert and they will figure it out. They will cost more doing it that way, right? But the time that it takes them to do that, like, let me give you a really good example. When I bought my first house, we had popcorn ceiling and we wanted to get rid of the popcorn ceiling. I got a quote for how much it would cost to remove the popcorn ceiling. They said $900. And I was like, $900 to come remove my popcorn ceiling? Like, forget it, I'm gonna do it myself. So me, my brother-in-law, and my husband started to go up there and just spraying and scraping. It took us, we had 3 rooms that had popcorn ceiling. It took us an entire day to get through 1 room. So after that one day, I was like, forget it, let me just hire them. So I paid $900. They came in, they did it in an hour. They finished it all in an hour. And I remember thinking like, I paid them $900 for 1 hour of work. But then I thought, wait a minute, what took them 9 hours? What took them 1 hour would have taken me like 4 days or a week, right? So you have to remember that. So it's, so same thing with the website, something that might take, for Carol T, for example, Carol T was on my mind for like a year already. I'm going to do it. It was on my to-do list. So anything on my to-do nowadays, anything on my to-do list for longer than 3 months, hire someone to do it. It's not going to get done. If it's still sitting on your to-do list, like I even say 3 weeks later, just hire someone to get it done. And then it was done in like 3 weeks, right? So you'll pay more in that case. The other way to hire help is if it's something that you do really well. So for example, album design. I was very particular with how I wanted an album designed. So then what I did was I essentially wrote an instruction manual. If I had to teach somebody how to design an album exactly the way I design it, what would it be? Okay, these are the kind of photos I look for. I like to pair a wide with the close. I like to have a hero image next to, right? So like really breaking down your thought process. It should ideally be so straightforward that you can hand that instruction off to a high school student and they should be able to sit down and follow the instruction and complete it. So if you do that way, you can hire cheaper labor because at that point, you're just looking for someone who can execute an instruction manual, right? They don't have to come up with the process for you. So those are kind of, I'm generalizing, but in a sense, that's like the 2 ways that you can hire help. So in the full Like Nobody's Business course, we talk about what I call a run book. And the run book is essentially your company's instruction manual. So the reason why I was able to travel for 2 weeks, right? Because I do destination gigs and speaking engagements and stuff. I'm gonna be gone for like 2 weeks coming up in the spring. But my company is going to continue to run. That's because anybody can pick up this manual, flip to the page. I need to ship out. Oh my God, these albums just arrived. We need to ship it out. They can flip to, it's a digital, it's all Google Docs, but they can open up, you know, the folder that says shipping, and then it specific album. Okay, baby's first year album versus wedding album. It has pictures of how to package it. This is how you wrap the tissue. This is how you seal it. I'm even picky down to how the tape is taped, right? This is where you put the tape. This is how you print out the shipping label. So anybody in theory should be able to open up that manual, follow it. And when I hire people, I essentially put them, that's their interview process. Here's the instruction manual. Please ship me an album. And then you just see, does it come to you properly? Or please send an email blast to me, or I send like a fake inquiry. Please respond to this inquiry. And then I just see how they handle that. And I pretend to be a client writing back and forth just to see how they handle that situation. So yeah, hope that helps. Hope that's like a good start.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, Debs.
Hello. Firstly, I just want to say, love your work. I've been following you for a while now.
Thank
and
you.
your these online training courses are always so much fun. I just have a question about client experience. I don't know if you talk about it in this in the coaching group, but you know, how does client experience, you know, how does that relate to like elevating your pricing? You know, what does the client experience mean? You know, is it more than just guides, sending PDF guides to my client? Like what else do I gotta do to serve my people?
Right.
Besides like, here's some PDFs. Here you go.
So in Like Nobody's Business, we have a whole chapter dedicated to this, but I call it the customer journey versus the customer experience, because I feel like the journey encompasses many experiences, right? So it's from the moment that they find you to how you talk to them, to where you meet them, how you meet them, and then down to the shoot itself. So, and it's the number one thing that determines what your perceived value is, right?
Yeah.
If I was paying for a $50 photo shoot, and you had me show up, and if I showed up and it was like in the back storage room of a cell phone store, like I'm just, I don't know, my imagination's going, right? I would probably be okay with that because, okay, I didn't expect much for $50, right? But if I was paying $2,000, I would be expecting professional gear, right? I would be expecting like professional studio setup, like, so not like DIY type of stuff anymore, right? Like if it was a $50 photo shoot and I came in, it was just like fabric from Joann's clamped to, you know, a pile of boxes or something like that. It's like, okay, that's $50, right? So the website, that when I talk about website, that's exactly what I meant by client experience too. How easy was it to navigate? What are they seeing? Like, is the level of photos and videos that they're seeing on there, right? That all comes down to client experience. And then when you're shipping their stuff too, how are they getting their photos? Is it a Dropbox link? Is it just here are your photos, a Dropbox link? Or is it like, how is it presented, right? Like I use PicTime, and so PicTime, it's like, it looks very elevated. It's a gallery and looks very pretty, and all the products look very pretty. If you are offering, you know, $2,000 sessions and you're selling, say, Shutterfly books with it, there's a disconnect there, right? So as you start to raise prices, everything has to level up with it. So, and it's a process, but yeah, great, really great question. And the example that I like to use is like, if I walked into Target to buy a watch, what that experience is like, it's like, I find something off the shelf, right? But if I walk into Cartier or Rolex trying to buy a watch, it's not the same. They're going to bring it out on a velvet like tray, right? And so and give me champagne along with my shopping experience. So it's the same thing that you have to think about for your clients too. However, that doesn't mean everyone had, like, one misconception I feel like people were starting to get when I was talking about like the luxury experience is everyone felt like they had to do that. And I was like, if you're not luxury yet, like that'd be over overkill, right? Like if I was buying a $50 watch and here you are bringing it out on a velvet tray and serving like champagne with it, there's like, well, like, okay, this feels kind of creepy now, right? Like I'm here for a $20 watch because I needed something quick, grab and go, right? Same thing with restaurant. The experience you expect when you go into a Chipotle versus if you go to a Michelin star restaurant, right? So it's the same thing with your photography. It has to match the level that you're at, and there's no need to over deliver it. Like if Chipotle started to come out with like cloth napkins and like service, so you'd be like, wait, something like I didn't come here for that, right? And so there's not one better than other. It's what's right for you and what's right for your market at this time of your business.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, good question, Debs. All right, Mary. I'll do Mary, Wendy, and then I'll call it a day for today. Okay.
Well, you're actually answering some of my questions a little bit. You spoke a little bit about having like a separate room if you have like a studio or whatever. At this point, I'm literally looking at my studio right now because it's just kind of in the corner of my room and stuff. And I'm saying to myself, okay, well, let me at least ask to make sure. I've heard some people say that, you know, you can still charge top dollar even if you're like shooting out of your kitchen, and they'll say, here's the proof that, you know, I did it myself, and da da da. And so I just want to kind of bounce that off of you to make sure that the experience I'm giving to people, I know I don't have to worry about literally giving them champagne and caviar and stuff, but just making sure that it doesn't feel weird for them.
I think it comes down to like, will your clients feel comfortable and good there, right? Like the better they feel, the better experience that they're going to have, right? And so a lot of it has to do with like mirroring them in a way.
Okay.
So for example, if your home is very similar to your audience's homes, they will feel very comfortable there when they come there, right?
Good point.
Yeah. So I think that's totally fine. So I would say as long as it's like clean and comfortable and your clients, you feel like this is kind of like the range that they're at, then that's good. So I shoot out of my home and I have a really hard time keeping it clean because I have two. And so that's why I have my housekeeper come on Wednesdays and then my studio days are on Thursdays because that's the cleanest the house is going to be.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, you have 3 boys. What do you want? You know,
it's my schedule is very intentional in that way, right? So I'm at a point where a lot of my clients have much more nice homes than me. So for me, it's like, you know, as long as I can keep them comfortable and the lighting is gorgeous. Most of my clients like my place, like, you know, my home is nicer than some clients, but I also have a lot of clients have nicer homes as well. But I feel like it's, you know, pretty modern, up to date, and it's an open layout. So I feel like it's very comfortable and accommodating for my audience right now. So
that's a good point. I live in a nice apartment complex. You know, it's not super fancy, but it's got, you know, pool, little amenities and stuff. So that's a good point. It's not going to, you know, it's not like, you know, a Matchbox.
Yeah.
Off the beaten path somewhere. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
All right, Wendy.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Yes.
Okay, so I've been a photographer for a long time, and I made probably the classic mistake of most photographers is that I concentrate a lot on the creative process. And you know, I had a year where I signed on a lot of money with a coach, and you know, I made all this money, and at the end of the day, when I did all the accounting, I was like, but wait a second, I didn't actually make that much profit. And, you know, and then I had I had a bad back and I had surgery. So the past year was not so great. And so this year I feel like I'm starting from scratch. Like I'm spending way too much time sitting at my desk, and, you know, I don't have any money in the bank account, and you know, I can shoot, like I know how to take the photos, but I don't even know what to do first. Should I revamp my website, or should I hire somebody, or should I I am like all over the place. I don't know how to prioritize what to do first.
So in Like Nobody's Business, we do talk about the journey and the marketing funnel, which I know you heard a little bit about at Imaging USA already. It's figuring out where the clog is in your funnel first. So it's not something that I can answer like in a short time. It will take a little bit of like diagnosis. But for example, right, like just a quick nutshell of what your funnel looks like. Your funnel is essentially your marketing, right? Picture it like a funnel. All of your potential clients, picture it like water that comes in. So the better your marketing is, so for example, Instagram posts, Google SEO, word of mouth, right? All of that sends them into your funnel. When the minute that they made that first contact with you, they slid into your funnel. Now, what happens next? And this is the journey, the client experience that we talk about, that we spend a whole chapter on. But so once they're in there, what happens next? Is it clear what they do next? Do they go to your website? And then what do they see when they go to your website? And if they're interested, they fill out a contact form. What happens next? How do you get back to them, right? So the cleaner this funnel is, the more likely they are to come in. And when they come out through the bottom, they are a paid client. However, most of our funnels have holes in it. And sometimes you want some holes because some of the people who come into your funnel will not be the right client for you too. So then you need holes for them to come out, right? Those are your filters. But you want to make sure that your ideal clients are not slipping through the cracks. You want just the wrong clients, right? So there's so many, this is like such a deep question because, for example, if you are getting way more leads than you can handle, then that means you need to do a better job of putting a filter before they enter the funnel, because you don't want them entering the funnel. They're wasting your resources, right? If they're the wrong clients, that is. If you are not getting enough people into the funnel at all, so this is where I need to like diagnose your business more to know what the correct answer is. If you're not getting anyone into the funnel, then we got to start figuring out what's broken up here. Like these are called lead magnets. What's wrong with the magnets? Something is not attracting the clients, right? Or what could happen is you're attracting lots of clients, but maybe they're leaking out. They're not converting to paid clients. Then you got to see what's broken here. Where is that hole, unnecessary hole that you got to patch up? So that's kind of the process that I would take you through, or you can try to do that yourself as well. But that's essentially like how you troubleshoot your business, and wherever that problem is what you do first.
Okay. And sorry, I looked on the thing and, I haven't filled out the Google thing, but it's just ready for me to fill it out, but it doesn't say anywhere how much the course costs.
At the last question.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's an FAQ too, but if you go to all the way at the end, there's payment plans. So I think if you pay all up front, it's the best value. And I think that's like 1,800 something. And then that includes the pre-recorded class plus the Zoom calls as well, 8 Zoom sessions. And then there's also like a 3-month payment plan and a 6-month payment plan. And then I also gave you the option, like if you wanted to even save more money, to just not do the Zoom calls and just do the pre-recorded self-guided on your own. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. We went a little bit over time, but thanks for hanging out and making the time. I hope to see, keep in touch regardless of whether, you end up applying for the program or not. And if you don't make it into this cohort, I will keep in touch with you about other opportunities when I have more time. But, usually what I'm looking for is good chemistry between people. Like it's not necessarily about the levels of people, because like I said, I can teach any level from like beginning to advance in a way that everyone would get value in it. But I want you to be able to get a lot out of it too. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. It's like, based on where you're at and what you're looking like, are we a right fit for each other? Like, will my teaching style work for you? Is what you're learning, wanting to learn something that I'm able to help you with as well? So that's why I have questions for you on there, just to make sure that we all, fit together really well. So, but thank you all. Have a good lunch, if it's lunch where you're at, or afternoon snack or nap. Afternoon naps are great. All right. Have a good day, everyone. We'll keep in touch, Instagram, Facebook.